Diansheng Galaxy 10. The officially listed size is 78.8. Right here I'm getting a 79.1. This makes it 5mm smaller than the Meilong 10. And I don't have the Qi 10x10, but based on what I read online, it's also the same size as the Meilong 10. Comparing with 9x9s, I only have the Qi 9x9, which stands at 75mm, which is above the average size of a 9x9. The Meilong 9 is 74mm and the Diansheng 9 is 73mm. So taking 74 to be the average size of a modern 9x9 and 84 to be the average size of a modern 10x10 before this one came out, then 79 actually just stands right in the middle of 74 and 84. And while thinking about the numbers in one dimension is already impressive enough on its own, actually trying to fill the cube out in 3 dimensions really makes 79mm a game changer over 84mm. I would say when you get to cubes of this size, it's generally bigger than what an average size human hands would comfortably grip, and every drop in size is going to be well appreciated. The grip I have on this cube is quite different from what I can get on the Meilong 10. The Meilong 10 is extremely similar to the size of the Shengshu 8x8 from many years ago. This one is 83mm. Quite a game changer on its own because a 10x10 of this generation would have been like over 100mm, and I would say over 100 is pretty much a table abuse puzzle. And then when this puzzle came out, it dropped like 10x10 from a table abuse puzzle to a uncomfortable handheld puzzle, which I would say it's the whole range of 80 or 90 plus millimeters would be an uncomfortable handheld puzzle. And now, like just 3 years after the Meilong, Diansheng has now pushed uncomfortable handheld into comfortable handheld. I can really grip this with almost the same grip that I would have on like my Qi 9x9, and it really does have a small feel when I use this puzzle. When it comes to speed, the outer layer of the Diansheng is the fastest, while the second, third and fourth layer are more similar to each other than they are to the outer, but they still slightly increase in friction the further you go inward. And the fifth layer is the slowest. This one is just an unfortunate side effect that of like cube mechanism that is not unique to the Diansheng, and I would say that to quite a lot of other even layered big cubes as well. And I personally found this first and second layer difference, as well as the second, third, fourth layer similarity to be very nice, because even with the cube's smaller size, 79mm isn't that small, still nowhere as like finger trickable as a 7x7 or an 8x8. So like the finger is not gripping the whole cube at once, and like with a few layers not under your control, it's really nice that they just stick together and you can still turn really fast and really reliably, especially when you do things like edge pairing. You can just insert and take out edges really fast. And of course 3x3 stage is just outer layers only. Comparing the speed with other non-WCA big cubes, I would say that the Meilong is still faster and smoother than the Diansheng all around. And the Diansheng also just has slightly more texture to its turning due to the anti-stick design, and I do think its mechanism causes the cube to be a little crunchier than it is compared to the Meilong. For the Qi, I can't really do a fair comparison since I don't have the 10x10 and I only have the 9x9, but like, I spring compress my 9x9 on top of that, and the springs are 2mm shorter than they originally were. So my cube is actually a lot faster than the stock Qi 9x9, and overall, even after the spring compression, I would say that it's still slightly slower than the Diansheng 10x10. And I do not know if the speed of the Qi 9x9 can reflect anything about the Qi 10x10, because I have personally tried the Qi 8x8 before, and it's way faster than what the Qi 9 is out of the box. In fact, it's comparable to my spring compressed one. The magnets of the Diansheng 10 tell the same story as the speed distribution between the layers, with the outer layer having the weakest magnets and the remaining 4 layers on the inside being relatively similar to each other. In the category of magnets, the Diansheng pretty much wins over every other brand instantly because it's factory magnetized and it saves you the trouble of doing it yourself. And I can't really comment on other brands' magnet schemes in general because it really depends on what you put in those cubes. But just against what I've put into my own cubes, my Meilong 10 has weak magnets all around, which goes well with its very light turning, and my Qi 9 intentionally has a weaker magnet on the outer layer and stronger magnets in all the inners, which I would say that the difference here is actually a little bit bigger than the difference here. And overall, I would say that this is quite a usable magnet scheme because it's just right in the middle of what I put into these two. When it comes to flex, I would say that the Diansheng is also right in the middle of the spectrum. So the Meilong 10 has the weaker springs and also the least flex to its mechanism, so it's actually still the most stable one, but it glides with ease, with the least pressure and the least friction. While the Qi 9 is the softest and the most flexible one, with the best transition between turns. And at the same time, the springs also hold the cube together with more force, making the corner cutting a little bit more snappy. So I would say that overall this is quite similar to what the Spark 7x7 feels like, minus the fact that this is totally square while the Spark is rounder. The Diansheng does feel more flexible than the Meilong, but less than the Qi, and it also does feel more springy than the Meilong, but less than the Qi. Overall, I do think all three are nice in their own way. There isn't really one style that I would like above the others. However, there's one annoying feature that would ruin what would have otherwise been a nearly perfect cube. I do have the same problem with the Qi 9x9 as well. Overall, I still think the Diansheng 10 is a little bit worse, and again, since I don't have the cube, I have no idea how prominent popping is on the Qi 10x10. The Meilong, on the other hand, has given me zero, if not very rare instances of actually popping or locking up, and maybe just one or two before I have fully set up this cube. And right now, I really also just can't purposely make a pop happen on this cube. It might have been due to me tensioning this cube super tight, but at the same time, I've also tensioned the Diansheng super tight as well. If not, it's really comparably tight compared to my Meilong. I still have a significant number of saws ruined by nasty lockups or pops. Whereas on the other hand, I can pretty much set this cube up to a tension that is pretty much unpoppable, but yet still performing decently. I just can't say that about the Diansheng. When it comes to mechanism, the Diansheng 10 actually has more in common with the Qi 10 than it has with the Meilong 10. All three of these cubes have a triple shell design. All the way down here, this is a 3x3 shell. This center will lock down the two midges on the side here, and it also locks down the corner, just like a normal 3x3 center locking down two 3x3 edges and one 3x3 corner. Then on top of the 3x3, like this piece will extend a bit further, and two layers are stacked on top of this 3x3. These two layers actually go all the way up here, so there are actually these two layers here. These form a 7x7 because like when you add 2 on this side, the cube is symmetrical and there will be 2 more on the other side. So that's a total of 4 layers on top of the 3x3. That's why you get the 7x7. And then of course on top of that 7x7, like these two, now you have another set of 2 more layers stacked right here. And this gives you these 2 layers, as well as their mirror images on the other side. So that technically should be an 11x11, but because at the very top the middle layer will get hidden, the 11x11 gets reduced to a 10x10. For both the inner shells, I refer to them with odd numbers because the shell isn't exactly hidden at that point. It still has to extend further to anchor in the next shell. It's only when you get to the last shell where there's no need for it to rise higher and anchor another shell. That's when it gets cut off and gets hidden by the other layers. That's why only the outermost shell is an even number. The other two, I just described them with odd numbers. But beyond the 3 shells, like the Meilong is different from the Diansheng and the Qi in terms of the number of anchors. Meilong actually has 3 anchors. So right deep inside here, you can actually see the 3x3 anchor. This one here is actually the 5x5 anchor, and the one here is the 10x10 anchor. This is a triple anchored corner. So of course the outermost anchor is just like a regular 3x3 and it sits at the very bottom of all the edges, but the second anchor actually sits down here and it twists these 2 layers out of the straight line, and now they are more curved. This is standard Aosu stuff. But then here, the third anchor, which is not found in most cubes, it will cause these 2 layers as well as the inner 2 to also twist themselves out of the straight shape. So in a way, all of these are all twisted and it's quite hard for them to pop out of the cube. The real pieces which are really affected are these pieces here, those second layer pieces which are very annoying and pop out very easily. But in the Meilong 10, you notice that they are not entirely flat, they do have a small hook. So what the Diansheng did instead of having 3 anchors is that it only has 2 anchors, so you can tell that deep inside the cube you can still see the 3x3 anchor. Then on top of that, this is the 5x5 anchor that is within this shell, so you can tell that like the shape of the anchor goes around this part here. And then the outer shell here, which is the 10x10, is just a straight line going out. There's no anchor in the 10x10 shell. What happens instead is that the second layer here has this extra bulge that would kind of do the function of the third anchor, and it causes the third layer here to twist, and so affects the 4th and the 5th. I don't have the Qi 10x10 with me, but I can show you some pictures that I've seen online. This is from zcube.com, and here The second layer is totally flat. The third layer has that extra bulge that will twist the fourth and the fifth. I do not know if this is personal bias or anything, but based on my own observations, the second layer of the Diansheng is actually way flatter than it is on the Meilong. This is a hook. I can still see a very small foot if I stare hard enough, but it's really hard to see. And likewise, for the images of the 310 I found on the C-Cube, the second layer pieces also do look quite flat as well. Overall, the Diansheng Galaxy 10M is undoubtedly the best 10x10 on the market, with its small size, factory magnetization, and layer speed distribution giving it the best handling and performance. I can generally clock more turns per second and solve it in about a whole minute faster than the Meilong 10M. Unfortunately, it is not without its flaws. Popping is a major problem with this cube, though this is common among big cubes from several other brands. Would I recommend this cube? If you're not going to do much non-WCA anyway, and you only intend to pick up a 10x10 to solve once in a while, maybe let other people play with your 10x10, then the Meilong, even without its magnets, is still a very solid option. Especially if you can just do a bit of tensioning work and already make that cube super difficult to pop while still being fast. But if you have the money to cash on a magnetic 10x10 and you are interested in solving a 10x10 in the fastest timings you can possibly get, then the Galaxy is the way to go.